If D.C. did legalize medical marijuana, are people automatically going to think that then you're going to legalize marijuana as a whole?
These are separate issues. What medical marijuana laws do is they provide qualified patients. We're talking about seriously ill people, people with HIV and AIDS, cancer, multiple sclerosis, glaucoma. This is not about recreational use. These are providing seriously ill people with much needed medical care.
But you know, in California, I feel like that system tends to be abused a little bit because I'm from California, and they're constantly, you know, a lot of the conversations are, oh, if you know the right doctor, then you just come in and you say you got a little backache, or that I have headaches and they just won't go away, and instantly you get prescribed this Cannabis Club card.
Well, California passed the nation's first medical marijuana law in 1996, excuse me. But if you look at the states that have passed since then, and again, I'm stressing 13 other states across the country, and now we're going to have the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, being a jurisdiction that has legal medical marijuana. You'll see those programs being well run, enjoying popular support, and I can't emphasize enough that this is something Americans support. The latest polls show that more than 80% of Americans support medical marijuana laws.
All right, now I do want to broaden this discussion, as I did in my introduction, because I was saying that around the world, many people think of America, this is somewhere where we're always preaching about our morality, so many people think that America is a little prudish. I mean, just recently, it was the state album of Virginia where there was a Greek goddess on it and there was a breast showing, and that had to be hidden. You know, this is a country where things like that are forbidden, but if in this nation's capital, legal or medical marijuana was legalized, do you think that the rest of the world would then change their thoughts on America, would see the country differently?
Well, obviously medical marijuana in the nation's capital has great value in terms of expanding the debate over medical marijuana. Like I said, there are more than a dozen states across the country that are considering these laws, and they're going to be looking to the nation's capital as an example. And especially here, where we have federal lawmakers in D.C. every day, this provides a really great opportunity to bring congressmen from states who perhaps have never seen a working medical marijuana law up close. We can bring them to dispensaries. We can have them meet patients. This is a great opportunity for public education about medical marijuana issues.
All right, tell me this. This is maybe you think a little bit of a random question, but these federal lawmakers, they are technically residents of other states, but since they spend so much of their time working here in the nation's capital, if they are sick, are they allowed to take advantage of these medical marijuana laws?
This law would apply only to district residents, and perhaps more importantly, it would only apply to doctors within the District of Columbia as well.
All right. Now, what are the chances, do we think, of this actually passing? Because there was a yes vote on it today, but next it has to go to Mayor Fenty. Do we think it's going to be a thumbs up?
All indications are that the mayor will sign this, and we are looking forward to seeing a well-working medical marijuana law in the nation's capital.
And then could the U.S. Congress, after that, could they turn this down and overturn the mayor's approval?
There's a 30-day review period that Congress has because they control a lot of what goes on in the district. There's been no indication that they would intervene to stop this, and it's worth pointing out that this law is only coming out about now because Congress lifted a ban of more than a decade that stopped the implementation of this law. This law was first passed in 1998 by nearly 70% of district voters. This is something with lots of public support behind it.
All right, well, I think we will have to wait and see what happens, but for today there was a yes vote in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., to legalize medical marijuana.
I'm Sarah Diesel. I'm a patient advocate for medical cannabis. I've been in it for about 3.5 years now. Well, I became a patient about 4 years ago, and I didn't really think that this was true, that you could really go into a dispensary. So for about a year, I made my friends go in, and I sat in the car, as crazy as it sounds. And then I went into my first dispensary. 3 days later, I got a job there. 6 months later, I realized it wasn't the right dispensary for me, so I got out. I got hired at another dispensary that has just been a blessing. It has been awesome. I've been with them for about 2.5 years now. I actually help manage it, and I also manage the edibles, which is really important to me because I have a lot of patients who have eating disorders. Yeah, I pretty much just started to realize there was more to it than just bud tending, so I became an advocate as well.
Over to authorities in Vancouver, where he will be extradited to the United States. It's part of a plea deal Mark Emery made with the American authorities last year when he admitted to illegally selling marijuana seeds in the U.S. But he hoped the Canadian Justice Minister would prevent his extradition. Romina Dea is at Supreme Court, where he turned himself in this morning. And Romina, I think most people thought he would not be extradited.
Yeah, you know what, Randy? Everyone was holding on to hope that that wouldn't happen. But, of course, early this morning, the Justice Minister, the federal Justice Minister decided that Emery would be extradited, and he is to serve a 5-year jail sentence in the U.S. for selling marijuana seeds on the Internet. Now, Emery and his wife arrived here on the steps of BC Supreme Court in Vancouver early this morning. They were thanking all their supporters, all this time that have been behind them. He did this and met with everyone in the crowd before he turned himself in to sheriffs. It was very emotional, obviously more so for Emery's wife, Jody, to have to see her husband go off to jail like this. And here's what Emery had to tell us before he turned himself in.
I believe that they will reward me by their continued vigilance if I'm sent to jail. I'm quite confident of it. I have every belief that millions of Americans and Canadians will be very, very upset and be very angry and hostile towards the government. If I am extradited, I have told my supporters every Conservative member of Parliament is to be hounded endlessly and unrelentingly and unmercifully until they are defeated in the next or following elections.
So Randy, Emery will be held in custody at North Fraser pretrial, and then he is to be sent off to the U.S. I spoke to his lawyer just a little time ago, and he said that it's probably going to take about 1 to 2 weeks. He'll probably be sent to Seattle, but that hasn't been decided yet either. Randy?
Romina, what is the possibility that Emery could actually end up serving his sentence in Canada?
Randy, the chance is probably about this big at this point, given the Conservatives' track record. So what has to happen in this whole process now is Emery will be transferred to the States. He'll have to appear before an American judge. That's when he will be sentenced. And then after that, he can make an application for what's called a treaty transfer to serve his sentence back here in Canada. Now, the interesting thing is that American authorities have already agreed to this treaty transfer, and it would be up to the public safety minister then here in Canada to decide if that's going to happen. But as I said, given the Conservatives' track record on this, there are several of these treaty transfers pending right now where Canadians who are imprisoned in the States are asking to come back to Canada to serve their sentences, and none of those have been granted, so the chances are very slim. Randine?
All right. Thank you for that, Romina. Romina Dea updating from Supreme Court today. The Vancouver Police.
This special SalemNews.com report is brought to you by the THC Foundation, serving the cannabis community since 1999.
I would estimate that there were about 180 students there. There could have been 200. I didn't really count all that. And I was able to give my presentation, which there's no point in me trying to tell all of the approximately 200 medical conditions for which you can get a permit, you know, in the various and sundry states. And so I had overhead slides, or whatever they call them, and I pointed out Todd McArea's list and a couple of other lists, and then I said, this is the pièce de résistance. This is Granny Storm Crow's list, you know. And I want you guys to take notes about this thing, because Monday morning we're going to have an exam about this thing, and you better know what you're doing. And I was viciously booed about that one. After I spoke, which was for, I guess, about 50 minutes or something like that, then we opened it for, and I told them at the start, I says, any of you have any questions about anything I have to say, just raise your hand, and that's fine with me. So we had some excellent questions, but quite frankly, the questions were typical to what we had when our regular television program was, and also the type of questions that we get emails to coming in here. So, I mean, there's really a tremendous interest in this. My point about this is